Hello everybody, Tracy Brown here. So I promised some people in a group and just in general because I think this is really important. And it must be important because it's come up a couple different times this week, so that's why we should talk about it, is the idea of wanting to count calories. And this is especially for people who just started this journey, who've been at it a little while. When I say a little while, I mean less than a year. But it's for everybody because it's going to creep up at some points and it's not a big deal. It's more about what we do with it. Okay, so if you haven't started intuitive eating or you just have in the last several months and you kind of hear those diet voices creeping back in, or they've still kind of been there but they're less loud. Anytime we have food or diet talk, so I want to count calories, I hear food rules like, oh, I should eat more than one serving of sweets a day, or I shouldn't eat past 7 o'clock, or somebody else is dieting and you're feeling like, oh, maybe I should do that, or you feel some envy about that, or whatever. Always know 100% of the time that something is coming up. So I'm sorry, it's kind of glary. That's a little better. So just want to put that out there first. So some people just want to hear those thoughts and just ignore it. Like, nope, I'm not going to listen to it. I'm not going to entertain it anymore. And that's totally fine. You can do that. And sometimes that's the best thing to do. Sometimes we have to I never can say this right. Compartmentalize stuff so we can move on with our day. But the way I see, anytime you have food or body talk or desire to diet or count things or measure your food or yourself, always know that there's a little tapping at your door to get your attention about something deeper, because it's the bigger, it's the macro and the micro, meaning anytime you have food thoughts or you want to count calories or you think you've eaten too much and there's a likelihood that you haven't, but you feel that way anyway, I want you to get curious about what feels like too much. So we're not going to go into a decoding session today about that, but what I want to give you are just a few phrases to maybe get you going. So this is more cognitive today, people. So it's not really about like the somatic work I do or the decoding work I do. This is just, I want to get you started with the head piece. So I always work at the head, heart, gut, even soul level, but we're going to start with the head thing today. Is whenever, let's say for example that you feel like, oh, I can't have more than one dessert in a day. I want you to start asking yourself a series of questions so you can get a little deeper about it. And just to give you some insight, this is all today's conversation is about. So it's some insight. So let's say, oh, well, I had a cookie at lunch, so I can't have cake at dinner, even though there's some I really want, and I want to make it okay, and I think I should be okay about it, but I don't really feel okay about it. What I would say to that is, who says? Who says you can't have dessert at dinner if you already had some at lunch? And so people would say to me, well, who says, well, I do. I'm like, really? Like, were you born with that thought that you can't have dessert more than once a day? And people say, oh, well, I guess it's culture, or diet culture, or that's what my doctor told me, or my grandma told me, or whatever. Okay, gotcha. And so who says they know more about your body than you do? And so most of the answer is pretty obvious. Well, nobody does, actually. But we just keep going with that. So, okay, so, who says? The next question I would ask is, well, what would happen? And some people say, well, I'll gain weight. Okay, so you can break that down. You could actually see, if you had 2 desserts a day in your day with intuitive eating, would that actually happen? And most people would say, probably not. If I'm actually really listening, yeah, of course. Of course. So then we go deeper, go around that. Well, what would happen if it wasn't about weight loss or trying to maintain your weight or whatever? What might it be about if you are really listening and that's what you want and you're, for the most part doing hunger and fullness work? What would happen? Oh, well, people might criticize me. Well, about what? 2 desserts? Well, no, because actually, and they start to drop down into the micro. Well, in my house, probably not. They really don't care. In fact, they want me to be more free and not worry about it. Okay, if that's your circumstance. Well, so what is it you feel like is going to happen if you do or you don't eat less dessert, more dessert. And what starts to bubble up? You'll start to feel like you get a little bit below the thinking level and more in the feeling. And what you'll start to notice is that you start to get like, oh, I feel like if I do that, I'll be doing something right, let's say. Or that's what's expected of me. Or when I don't eat 2 desserts, I feel like I had some discipline. Like, okay, so discipline about what? Because you're learning how to be an intuitive eater. Like, what is it you need to control or have discipline about? And if you start going deeper and take the food part out of it, we start to see that, like, oh, maybe this is not about the food. This is, like, where do you not feel that you're doing something right in your life? Where do you not feel like that you have discipline or feel like that you're being successful, or on and on and on. So you want to start digging in there. And if I only ask you a couple questions, but there's 20 more I could ask you in all different kinds of ways around, okay, so doing right for what? Where is it in your life you don't feel like you do a good job, or you don't do things right? And it could be, well, I've actually taken a pretty different path in my life, and I'm so different than everybody I know, and actually feels pretty scary to go to the tune of my own drummer, or I'm afraid people won't get me, or whatever it is. And that's the thing that needs your attention. Not going on the diet, not skipping dessert when you want it, not counting calories because somebody is, those kind of things. So once you get really first clear about the thing, the surface thing, and the mind thing that feels like, okay, calorie counting is creeping back in, or food rules that I know aren't true, but I don't really believe, but like my head knows better, but emotionally or even partially mentally, I want to like engage in all that. Again, you can totally ignore all that stuff and just push through. You can. And sometimes that's the best thing to do. But anybody who knows me, that I'm a kind of a go deep kind of person. So I want you to understand what that is. So when that pops up, immediately to like, okay, what's going on? Who says? For what? What would happen? Then what? So if you had the 2 pieces, had the 2 desserts in a day, then what? What would happen? Well, logically, if you're eating from hunger and fullness, nothing. You'll get feedback from your body whether that feels good to you or not, and you might do it again the next day or you might not, depending on where you're at in your journey of habituation. For me, I had to eat 1 or 2 desserts every day for, a long, long time, and just accept that that's kind of how I was because I've had so much deprivation, and it took a while to like not feel like it was so special. When I say a long time, probably a year, 2 years, I'm not sure, but I had to commit to doing it, otherwise I would struggle with, if I wasn't binging, I was thinking about how I wanted to eat the food and I couldn't eat the food, and that took up so much, head space and emotional space and soul space, and so I realized that I had to let go, and actually that was the way I had actually more attunement with eating desserts. So but anyway, going back to the questions is, okay, so what would happen, and then what, and then what? If you come up blank, and because your brain's like, well, I know this is all BS, that I'm not going to be happier if I count calories or feel more in control or whatever, and all it is just that like somebody around me is dieting and it makes me miss that. Well, what do you miss about it? What do you feel like that you're leaving behind? So I do hope that you all listen to this again and go back and take some notes and write these questions down. What are you leaving behind? What are you gaining? And how do you feel about that? How do you feel about the idea of being that free and not counting calories? And, for me, I didn't know what to do with myself. I sat in my car many a day like, what do I do? I don't have anything to do, and I don't know what I like. And that was really emotionally uncomfortable, and it made me want to go back to that stuff because I didn't know how to be with myself. So that may be something that's coming up for you. There's all kinds of things that could be coming up. If it's still going towards like, I feel kind of numb about this, or I feel kind of flat and I don't know what's going on, see if you can notice any physical sensation. If that doesn't feel good to you, make note of that. It means you need to go slower in this process and build more safety in your nervous system before you can believe it in your body that it feels okay to actually have needs. And it's complicated sometimes because on one hand, part of your system feels maybe really good and empowered about getting yourself taken care of. Another part of your nervous system, or some kind of neurobiology pathway here, is wanting to reject anything to do with nourishment. And there's some good reasons for that. And, I don't know about you, I couldn't figure that stuff out for myself, but I would love to hear comments if you learned like how you've navigated all that. But that's something that takes a lot of patience and compassion and frankly time to keep noticing and keep building safety and nourishment in your system and feeling safe over and over and over and over again. I'm patting my steering wheel because it's like over and over and over again, to eventually feel like that isn't your immediate go-to. So I hope this answered some questions that when you're feeling like that, food and body talk or wanting to count calories or anything's popping up more in your brain. I want these videos to be, have some how-to in it, so you get a lot of value from it. You feel like, oh, okay, I can use this, and keep going and keep making strides with things. So, intuitive eating is definitely about learning about hunger and fullness signals, not turning it into an intuitive eating diet, learning how to really be embodied with this practice. But the other part of it is sometimes we need to really look at all that thinking and understand that it does have a function for you, even though it's not adaptive. It's adaptive to your past circumstances, but in the present, it doesn't work anymore. It's too painful. And so now we're working through building other resources to where it's just not feeling necessary anymore. And that can make the whole process go, feel like all the different pieces are coming together at once. So that's what I want you to understand about this kind of work. And I hope you apply some of it and leave your comments, questions, what you want more of, and I'll be on top of it. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.